You think you can just replace me? Daniel's voice tore through the baby shower like a thunderclap, silencing the laughter and music in Yemi's mother's garden. The pregnant woman froze, her hand still mid-air reaching for a gift, as her drunk ex-husband stumbled through the decorative arch of pink and white balloons. Hello guys. Welcome to Stories by Stoner. Before we dive into this explosive story, thank you so much for all your support. You are the reason this channel exists. Real quick, drop a comment below telling us where you're watching from. Now, let's get into it. Yemi's heart hammered against her ribcage as Daniel weaved between the round tables covered in lace, knocking over a centerpiece. Her friends, 20 women dressed in vibrant ankara and lace, stared in horror. Her mother, Mama, rushed forward, but Daniel shoved past her. Daniel, leave now, Yemi said quietly, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. She was 8 months pregnant, her belly pressing against the flowing lavender dress her best friend Kem had helped her choose that morning. Leave. Daniel laughed bitterly, pulling a wine bottle from inside his wrinkled jacket. I paid for this house. I paid for everything you own. And now you're here celebrating his baby. Kem stepped between them, her eyes flashing. You lost that right when you chose your secretary over your wife. Get out before we call security. Security. Daniel's bloodshot eyes locked onto Yemi. You filed for divorce, took half my money, and now you're playing happy family with some soldier boy? Where is he, anyway? Out saving the world while you throw parties. Yemi's jaw tightened. She'd met Tun 6 months after the divorce, a decorated military engineer who treated her with a respect Daniel never understood. They'd married quietly 3 months ago, and this baby shower was supposed to be her fresh start. This has nothing to do with Tund, Yemi said firmly. You need to. Daniel unscrewed the wine bottle with shaking hands. The garden went deathly silent except for the distant sound of Lagos traffic beyond the compound walls. You embarrassed me in court, he hissed, stepping closer. Told the judge I was unfaithful, irresponsible, a bad husband. You made me look like a fool in front of everyone. You did that yourself, Mama interjected, her voice sharp with maternal fury. Now leave my daughter alone or what? Daniel swayed dangerously. His designer shoes, probably unpaid for, Yemi thought bitterly, scraped against the stone pathway. You'll all judge me? Like you haven't been judging me for 2 years. He raised the wine bottle. Time seemed to slow. Yemi saw her mother's horrified face, and Kem's hands reaching out, her cousin Blessing pulling out her phone to record. She saw the red wine tilting, catching the afternoon sunlight. Then she felt it. Cold liquid splashed across her face, her chest, her swollen belly. The wine soaked through her dress, staining it dark purple. Gasps erupted from every corner of the garden. Someone screamed. A chair toppled as guests jumped back. Yemi stood frozen, wine dripping from her chin onto her belly, the humiliation burning hotter than any physical pain. Daniel's face twisted into something between regret and defiance. That's what you get, he slurred. That's what betrayal feels like. But before anyone could react, before Nkem could lunge forward, before Mama could strike him, before Yemi could even process her own shock, a voice cut through the chaos like steel through silk. Step away from my wife. Every head turned toward the gate. Tun stood there in his military uniform, still dusty from the field exercise he'd rushed back from. His face was unreadable, but his eyes, those dark, calm eyes that had comforted Yemi through so many sleepless nights, burned with controlled fury. Daniel's wine-stained hand began to shake. What happens when a decorated military officer confronts the man who just humiliated his pregnant wife? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more gripping stories like this. What do you think Tund will do? Comment below. Tund walked through the garden with measured steps, his military boots crunching against the gravel pathway. Daniel stumbled backward, the empty wine bottle slipping from his fingers and shattering on the stone. I was just, Daniel started, but his words died in his throat. Tund didn't rush. He didn't shout. He simply removed his beret, handed it to Nkem, who stood closest, and unbuttoned his uniform cuffs with deliberate precision. The silence was suffocating. 20 women held their breath, phones now recording from every angle. Yemi, Tund said softly, never taking his eyes off Daniel. Go inside with your mother. Change your clothes. Tund, I'm fine, Please. His voice remained gentle, but there was steel underneath. Let me handle this. Yemi hesitated, wine still dripping from her hair, then nodded. Mama wrapped an arm around her daughter's shoulders and guided her toward the house. Yemi glanced back once, seeing her husband standing perfectly still, facing the man who'd just violated the sanctity of her celebration. When the door closed behind them, Tund finally spoke. You threw wine on a pregnant woman, he said quietly. My pregnant wife. At a baby shower. In front of her family and friends. Daniel tried to puff out his chest, alcohol-fueled bravado returning. She was my wife first. That could have been my baby if she hadn't. If she hadn't what? Tund interrupted, his voice still eerily calm. If she hadn't left you for cheating on her repeatedly? If she hadn't divorced you for emptying your joint account to buy gifts for your mistress? If she hadn't moved on from a man who showed her no respect? Daniel's face flushed red. You don't know anything about our marriage. I know everything, Tund replied. Because unlike you, I actually listen when my wife speaks. I know you forgot her birthday 3 years in a row. I know you told her she was gaining weight when she was recovering from a miscarriage. Your baby, by the way. I know you brought that secretary to your anniversary dinner and expected Yemi to just accept it. The crowd murmured. Several women nodded knowingly. Nkem crossed her arms, a fierce smile playing at her lips. Daniel's lawyer had warned him to stay away from Yemi. The divorce settlement had been brutal. He'd lost the house, half his savings, and his reputation in their church community. His new girlfriend, the secretary, had left him 2 months ago when the money dried up. He'd been drinking every day since, stalking Yemi's social media, watching her happiness grow while his life crumbled. She destroyed my life. Daniel suddenly shouted, pointing toward the house. I gave her everything. You gave her trauma, Tund corrected, rolling up his sleeves. You gave her anxiety. You gave her nights where she cried herself to sleep wondering what she did wrong, when the problem was always you. And now you're the hero. Daniel sneered, trying to circle around Tund, but the soldier simply shifted his stance, blocking him. You think you're better than me because you wear a uniform? No. Tund's jaw tightened. I think I'm better than you because I would never humiliate the woman I love in public. I would never put my hands on her. And I would certainly never pour wine on her while she's carrying my child. Daniel lunged forward suddenly, his fist swinging wildly. But Tund, trained in combat, disciplined through years of military service, simply stepped aside. Daniel's momentum carried him forward, and he crashed into a table, sending plates of small chops and decorative flowers flying. Nkem's cousin, a lawyer named Blessing, was already on her phone. Yes, police. We have an intruder at 47 Banana Island Drive who just assaulted a pregnant woman and tried to attack her husband. Please send officers immediately. Daniel scrambled to his feet, his shirt torn, ego shattered. You can't. I'm her husband. Ex-husband, Tund corrected. And you have a restraining order violation to add to your list of problems now. Every person here saw you assault Yemi. Every phone in this garden recorded it. You're finished, Daniel. The sound of sirens began to wail in the distance. Daniel's face went pale. He looked around at the hostile faces, the phones, the evidence of his humiliation. This isn't over, he spat, backing toward the gate. Yes, it is, Tund replied. And if you ever come near my wife or my child again, what happens next won't be a conversation. It will be a court case you can't win and consequences you can't escape. 2 police vehicles pulled up as Daniel reached the gate. 4 officers emerged, and Blessing immediately walked over with her phone, showing them the videos. Inside the house, Yemi sat on her childhood bed, wearing a fresh dress, her mother gently wiping wine from her hair. Through the window, she watched them handcuff Daniel and push him into the police car. She should have felt victorious. But all she felt was tired. "He's never going to let me be happy, is he?" she whispered. Mama cupped her daughter's face. "That man out there," she nodded toward Tund, who was giving his statement to the police. "He's not going to let Daniel hurt you again. You picked right this time, my daughter." But as the police cars drove away and the guests began to whisper excitedly, Yemi noticed something that made her blood run cold. Daniel's phone had fallen from his pocket during the scuffle. And on the cracked screen, still illuminated, was a text message conversation. The contact name read, "Detective Bayo, Private Investigator." The last message, sent just an hour before Daniel arrived, read, "Found something big on the soldier. He's hiding something from her. Sending files now." What secret is Tund hiding? And how far will Daniel go to destroy Yemi's new happiness? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. What do you think Daniel discovered? Drop your thoughts in the comments. 3 days after the baby shower disaster, Yemi sat in her kitchen watching Tund prepare breakfast. He moved with the same precise efficiency he brought to everything, measuring coffee, slicing plantains, humming an old fella cootie song. The morning sun streamed through the windows of their Ikoyi apartment, painting everything gold. He seemed perfectly calm. Too calm. "The police called yesterday," Yemi said carefully, her hand resting on her belly where the baby kicked. "Daniel's lawyer is trying to reduce the charges, claiming he was having a mental health crisis." Tund's knife paused mid-slice, then continued. "Let him try. We have 20 witnesses and multiple videos. The restraining order violation alone will keep him away from you." "That's not what I'm worried about." Yemi stood, her pregnancy making the movement awkward. She walked to the counter where she'd hidden Daniel's cracked phone in a drawer. She'd told the police she'd return it, but something had stopped her. "I found something." Tund turned, his expression unreadable. "Found what?" She placed the phone on the counter between them. "Daniel hired a private investigator to dig into your background." The kitchen went silent except for the sizzling oil. Tund's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly, a tell Yemi had learned to recognize over their 10 months together. "And?" he asked quietly. "And I need you to tell me the truth." Yemi's voice shook despite her attempt at steadiness. "What is Daniel going to find, Tund? What are you hiding?" For a long moment, her husband said nothing. He turned off the stove, wiped his hands on a towel, and finally met her eyes. The pain she saw there made her stomach drop. "I was going to tell you," he said. "After the baby came. After everything settled." "Tell me what?" Yemi whispered, fear creeping up her spine. Tund pulled out a chair, sitting down heavily. "I was married before. For 6 years. Her name was Folake." The words hit Yemi like a physical blow. You were married?" "We met during my first posting in Kaduna. She was a nurse. We married young. I was 25, she was 23. Tund's voice was hollow, like he was reciting facts from a distance. "It was good at first. Then I got deployed to the Niger Delta. Border security. Dangerous territory." Yemi sank into the opposite chair, her mind reeling. They talked about past relationships. She told him everything about Daniel, every painful detail. He'd said there had been girlfriends but nothing serious. He'd lied. What happened to her? Yemi managed to ask. "I was gone for 18 months. Long deployment, minimal communication. When I came back." Tund's hands clenched into fists on the table. She'd moved on. Fallen in love with someone else. A doctor at her hospital. She wanted a divorce. "So you got divorced. Why hide it from me?" "Because of what happened after." Tund's voice dropped to barely a whisper. "The doctor she left me for, his name was Olyamide. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, they got married. I was bitter, Yemi. Angry. I felt like I'd sacrificed everything for my country and lost my wife because of it. Yemi's heart pounded. Tund, what did you do? I didn't do anything violent, he said quickly, seeing her fear. But I used my connections. My position. Olyamide had applied for a government contract, a big medical supply deal. I made sure he didn't get it. I had friends in procurement who owed me favors. I destroyed his business opportunity because I wanted him to suffer like I was suffering. The baby kicked hard, as if sensing Yemi's distress. She pressed her hand against her belly, trying to process this revelation. That's not all, Tund continued, his voice heavy with shame. Folake found out what I'd done. She confronted me, threatened to report me for abuse of power. We had a massive fight in public, outside her hospital. People recorded it. I said things. Terrible things about her, about women who abandon soldiers, about loyalty. It went viral in military circles. She was humiliated. Oh God, Yemi breathed. The military investigated me. I was cleared officially. There was no concrete proof I'd interfered with the contract. But my commanding officer knew. Everyone knew. I got transferred, pushed into administrative roles instead of fieldwork. My reputation took a hit. Tund finally looked up, his eyes red. And Folake. She had a breakdown. The public shame, the stress, losing the contract her fiancé had counted on. She attempted suicide. Yemi. Pills. Olyamide found her in time, but Yemi felt tears streaming down her face. How could you not tell me this? Because I was ashamed. Tund's voice cracked. Because I'd spent 3 years in therapy, 3 years becoming a better man, learning to process anger and betrayal in healthy ways. By the time I met you, I thought I'd left that person behind. I didn't want you to see me as that angry, vindictive man. I wanted to be the man you deserved. But I deserved the truth. Yemi stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the tiles. I deserved to know who I was marrying. What else haven't you told me? Tund stood too, reaching for her, but she stepped back. Nothing else. I swear to you, Yemi. Folake recovered. She and Olyamide moved to London 2 years ago. They're happy now. I sent her a message last year apologizing for everything. We made peace. It's over. Is it? Yemi's voice was sharp. Because Daniel has this information now. And you know what he's going to do with it, don't you? The realization hit them both simultaneously. Daniel wouldn't just keep this secret, he'd weaponize it. He'd use Tund's past to paint Yemi's new marriage as another mistake, to humiliate her publicly, to prove that she'd simply traded one flawed man for another. Tund's phone buzzed on the counter. He glanced at the screen and his face went white. What is it? Yemi demanded. He turned the phone toward her. The message was from an unknown number, but the content was clear. Saw the baby shower video online. Interesting husband you've got there, Yemi. Does he throw tantrums and ruin lives when things don't go his way? Because I have proof. Check your email. D. Yemi's hands trembled as she opened her email on her own phone. There it was, a message from Daniel's address with multiple attachments. Photos of Tund and Folake fighting outside the hospital. Screenshots of text messages between Tund and his military colleagues discussing the contract interference. A medical report documenting Folake's suicide attempt with Tund's name mentioned in the psychological evaluation as a contributing stressor. The subject line read, "The real man you married. Maybe you should have stayed with me." Has Yemi escaped one toxic marriage only to enter another? What will she do with this information? Don't forget to like and subscribe for the next chapter. What would you do if you discovered your partner had hidden their past like this? Comment below. Yemi sat on the edge of their bed, staring at her phone screen until the words blurred. Behind her, she could hear Tund pacing in the living room, his military boots creating a rhythmic pattern on the hardwood floor. He'd given her space, something Daniel never did, but the silence between them felt heavier than any argument. Her phone buzzed. Nkem's name flashed across the screen. "Did you see what Daniel posted?" Her best friend's voice was urgent before Yemi could even say hello. "Posted where?" "Facebook. Instagram. He's tagged you in everything." "Yemi, he's trying to destroy Tund publicly." Yemi's fingers flew across her phone, opening social media. Her heart sank. Daniel had created a post with the subject line, "Military man or manipulator? The truth about Yemi's perfect new husband." The post had hundreds of shares already. Daniel had included carefully selected screenshots, the hospital confrontation photos, portions of text messages, and a narrative that painted Tund as an abusive, power-hungry officer who'd driven his ex-wife to attempt suicide. The comments section was a battlefield. These women always running from one bad man to another. She left her husband for this? Shame. Military men think they can do anything. Good for Daniel exposing him. But there were other voices too. Daniel poured wine on a pregnant woman and y'all are defending him? This is revenge, pure and simple. He's trying to make himself look like the victim. Both men sound toxic. That poor woman. Yemi's hands shook. The baby kicked hard, responding to her stress. She placed her palm against her belly, trying to breathe like the midwife had taught her. "Yemi, talk to me," Nkem pressed. "Is any of this true?" "Yes," Yemi whispered. "Tund told me this morning. He was married before. He did those things. But Nkem, it was years ago. He's changed. He went to therapy. He apologized to her. But he didn't tell you," Nkem said gently. "That's what matters right now. He let you marry him without knowing his history. Like I told him everything about my miscarriage before we got serious." Yemi shot back defensively. "Like I told him about the time Daniel pushed me and I lied to the doctor about how I got the bruise? We all have things we're ashamed of." "This is different, Yemi. You know it is." Before Yemi could respond, Tund appeared in the doorway. His face was drawn, exhausted. "Your mother is calling. And my commanding officer. This is spreading fast." Yemi hung up on Kem and immediately her phone rang again, Mama's name appearing on screen. She answered on speaker. "Yemi, what is this nonsense I'm seeing online?" Her mother's voice was sharp with worry. "People are sending me messages asking if you're safe, if this man is abusing you. Your cousin Blessing called me crying, saying she helped send the wrong man to jail." "Mama, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" "Because right now, it looks like you jumped from one fire into another. That boy Daniel, for all his faults, never hurt anyone but you. This soldier nearly drove a woman to kill herself." "She's not dead, Mama. She's alive and happy in London. Tund made mistakes, but..." "Mistakes?" Mama's voice rose. "My daughter, you are 8 months pregnant. 8 months. What if this man's temper comes back? What if he decides you've betrayed him somehow and uses his military connections against you like he did that poor woman?" Tund stepped fully into the room, his face a mask of pain. "Mrs. Okonkwo, may I speak?" There was a long pause. "Talk. Everything Daniel posted is true. I won't deny it. I was a different man 5 years ago. Bitter, angry, vindictive. I used my position to hurt people who hurt me." His voice was steady but thick with emotion. "But I got help. I spent 3 years in therapy learning why I reacted that way, learning healthier ways to process pain. I'm not asking you to forget what I did. I'm asking you to see that people can change." "My daughter is not your rehabilitation project," Mama snapped. "No, Ma. She's the woman I love. The woman I've treated with nothing but respect and honesty since." "Honesty?" Mama laughed bitterly. "You hid a whole marriage from her." "You're right," Tund admitted, sitting heavily on the bed beside Yemi. I should have told her before we married. I was afraid of losing her, afraid she'd see me the way everyone did back then. That fear made me a liar, and I'm sorry. Yemi watched her husband's profile, the strong jaw, the tired eyes, the shoulders that carried so much weight. She thought about the past 10 months. How he'd never raised his voice at her. How he'd driven her to every prenatal appointment. How he'd held her through nightmares about Daniel. How he'd proposed with a speech about partnership and equality, not ownership. But she also thought about Folake, somewhere in London, who'd loved a man who'd turned his pain into her punishment. Mama, I need time to think, Yemi said quietly. Can we talk tomorrow? After her mother hung up, reluctantly, Yemi turned to Tund. I need you to leave for a few days. His eyes widened. Yemi. Not forever. Maybe not even for long. But I need space to process this without you in the room, without feeling like I have to forgive you immediately because you're being so reasonable and remorseful. Her voice broke. I need to figure out if I married you because you're genuinely different from Daniel, or if I just married someone whose darkness is better hidden. Tund nodded slowly, standing. I'll stay at the barracks. But Yemi. He paused at the doorway. Daniel is going to keep pushing. This isn't just about exposing my past. He wants you back, or if he can't have you, he wants you to be as miserable as he is. Whatever you decide about us, please be careful. He's escalating. After Tund left, Yemi sat in the growing darkness of their bedroom. Her phone continued buzzing with messages, some supportive, some judgmental, some from people she hadn't heard from in years, suddenly eager to comment on her life. Then a new email arrived. Not from Daniel this time, but from an address she didn't recognize. folake.williams@NHS UK. The subject line read, We need to talk about Tund. Yemi's finger hovered over the email, her heart racing. Whatever was inside would either confirm her worst fears or offer a perspective Daniel's vendetta couldn't provide. She opened it. Dear Yemi. My name is Folake. I was Tund's first wife. I'm writing because someone sent me the social media posts about you, him, and your ex-husband. I don't know who sent them, but I assume it was your ex trying to find ammunition. I need you to know something that those posts won't tell you. What secret does Folake reveal? Will it destroy Yemi's marriage or save it? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story. Have you ever discovered something about your partner's past that made you question everything? Tell us in the comments. Yemi's hands trembled as she continued reading Folake's email, the words illuminating her face in the darkened bedroom. I need you to know something that those posts won't tell you. Yes, Tund did terrible things when I left him. Yes, he used his position to hurt Olyamide's business. Yes, we had that horrible public fight. And yes, I did attempt suicide, but not just because of Tund. I was already struggling with severe depression before I even met Olyamide. My job at the hospital, working in the emergency trauma unit, I saw things that broke me daily. Children who didn't make it. Women beaten by their husbands. Soldiers who came back from deployment missing limbs and hope. I was drowning, and instead of getting help, I had an affair. I'm not excusing what Tund did. But those posts make it seem like he was some monster who destroyed an innocent woman. The truth is messier. I destroyed our marriage first. I cheated while he was risking his life in the Niger Delta. When he found out, he didn't hit me. He didn't threaten me. He just withdrew. He gave me the divorce I asked for without a fight. It was only after, when he saw Olyamide and me happy, saw us getting married so quickly, that he lashed out. He made one phone call that cost Olyamide a contract. One action driven by pain, not a pattern of abuse. And when I confronted him, yes, he said cruel things. But Yemi, I said cruel things too. I told him he was married to his job, not to me. I told him I never loved him the way I loved Olyamide. I wanted to hurt him because I felt guilty. My suicide attempt happened 3 months later, and it wasn't because of Tund. It was because I finally crashed from years of untreated depression, from the guilt of my affair, from the stress of starting over. Olyamide found my goodbye note, and nowhere in it did I mention Tund. I mentioned my patience, my father's death, my failure to be the person everyone needed me to be. The hospital therapist included Tund in the report because I'd mentioned our divorce during intake, and she was being thorough. But he wasn't the cause. He was just one piece of a much larger breakdown. After I recovered, Tund sent me a message apologizing for everything. But I owed him an apology too, which I gave him. We made our peace. He's been in therapy ever since, working on himself. Olyamide and I are in London now, and I'm happy. Truly happy. And I want Tund to be happy too. Your ex-husband is weaponizing my pain to hurt you both. Don't let him. Tund made mistakes, but he's not the villain in this story. Neither am I. We were just two broken people who couldn't fix each other. If you love him, fight for him. If you don't, leave him, but leave him because of who he is now, not who he was when he was drowning in grief. Take care of yourself and that baby. Folake. Yemi read the email 3 times, tears streaming down her face. She thought about Daniel, how he'd never apologized for anything, never went to therapy, never took responsibility for the affairs, the financial control, the emotional manipulation that had characterized their entire marriage. She thought about Tund, how he'd shown up to their first date with flowers and a handwritten note about respecting her boundaries. How he'd asked permission before kissing her. How he'd attended a co-parenting seminar with her even though the baby wasn't born yet, saying he wanted to be prepared to support her. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was a voice message from Daniel, his words slurred with alcohol. You reading all about your perfect soldier now, Yemi? You see what kind of man he really is? I may have made mistakes, but at least I never drove anyone to try to kill themselves. At least I was honest about who I was. Come back to me, baby. We can work this out. We can raise that baby together. I forgive you for everything. Yemi deleted the message before he could finish. The audacity, the sheer delusion, took her breath away. He'd poured wine on her 3 days ago, humiliated her in front of her family, and now he thought she'd come running back because Tund had a complicated past? She opened her laptop and began typing an email to Folake, thanking her for the truth. Then she composed a long text message to Nkem, explaining everything. Finally, she called her mother. Mama, I need you to listen to me. For 20 minutes, Yemi talked. She told her mother about Folake's email, about the full context Daniel had deliberately omitted, about the difference between a man who made mistakes and learned from them versus a man who made mistakes and blamed everyone else. But what if he changes back? Mama asked, her voice softer now. What if the stress of a baby brings out that old anger? Then I'll leave, Yemi said firmly. I'm not the woman I was with Daniel. I'm not afraid to walk away anymore. But Mama, I can't punish Tund for a past he's genuinely tried to heal from. That's not fair either. After hanging up, Yemi sat in silence, her hand on her belly where the baby, a girl they'd learned last month, kicked and rolled. She thought about what kind of mother she wanted to be, what kind of example she wanted to set. Running at the first sign of complexity wasn't strength. But neither was staying with someone dangerous. The question was, which category did Tund fall into? She picked up her phone and texted him, "Come home. We need to talk. Really talk." His response came within seconds, "On my way." While she waited, Yemi did something she'd been avoiding. She opened Daniel's social media posts and began scrolling through the comments. Most were from people who didn't know her, didn't know Tund, didn't know the full story. But then she saw something that made her blood run cold. Daniel had commented on his own post an hour ago. "Just wait. I've got more coming. Yemi thinks she's safe with her military man? I've been documenting everything. Every time he raises his voice. Every time he seems controlling. I've got people watching him. By the time I'm done, she'll see he's just like me. Except I never pretended to be perfect." Underneath, someone had replied, Bro, this is obsession. Let her go. Daniel's response. She's still my wife. That baby could be mine. I never signed those divorce papers properly. My lawyer told me there's a technicality. She's not really divorced. And if she's not divorced, that soldier is committing adultery with my wife. I can destroy both of them. Yemi's heart stopped. She grabbed the divorce papers from the filing cabinet in their home office, her hands shaking as she flipped through pages. Everything looked correct. The judge's signature. Both their signatures. The official stamp. But what if Daniel was telling the truth? What if there was some legal technicality she'd missed? What if, in the eyes of the law, she was still married to him? She heard Tun's key in the lock. He walked in, still in his uniform, his face etched with exhaustion and hope. Yemi, Daniel says the divorce isn't valid, she interrupted, shoving her phone toward him. He says he's still my husband. He says you and I are committing adultery. Yemi spent the entire night in their home office, surrounded by papers, her laptop glowing in the darkness. Tund had given her everything: Folake's evidence files, the divorce documents, records of Daniel's social media harassment, the baby shower videos, police reports. She'd called Blessing, her lawyer cousin, who'd arrived at midnight with coffee and her legal expertise. This is solid, Blessing said, adjusting her glasses as she reviewed the pharmaceutical documents. Folake documented everything. Falsified inspection reports, bribed officials, equipment that was certified safe but wasn't. 3 patients died from complications related to faulty surgical supplies. If this goes to the authorities, Daniel's business partner, this man, Benga Martins, he's looking at criminal charges. And Daniel? Yemi asked, her hand unconsciously rubbing her belly where the baby had finally settled into sleep. Daniel's not directly implicated in the hospital scandal, but he's in business with Benga. Took a loan from him, formed an LLC together for import-export. If Benga goes down, Daniel's financial comeback disappears. Blessing leaned back, studying her cousin. But Yemi, are you sure about this? Once you start this fight, it gets ugly. Court battles, media attention, Daniel will retaliate with everything he has. Yemi looked at Tund, who sat quietly in the corner, letting her make this decision without pressure. That itself was a statement. Daniel would have already decided for her, would have already acted, would have never given her agency over her own battles. He poured wine on me while I was pregnant, Yemi said softly. He violated a restraining order. He's trying to manipulate legal technicalities to claim we're still married. He's stalking me online, sending his followers to harass me, and now he's threatening to document Tund's behavior as if he's building some kind of abuse case. Her voice hardened. I'm done being afraid of Daniel. I'm done letting him control my narrative. Blessing smiled. Then let's build a case he can't escape from. 3 days later, Yemi sat in Blessing's law office in Victoria Island, facing Daniel across a mahogany conference table. He looked worse than at the baby shower, unshaven, his designer clothes wrinkled, his eyes bloodshot. But there was still that familiar arrogance in his posture, that belief that he could talk his way out of anything. You wanted this meeting, Yemi, Daniel said, leaning back in his chair. Finally realized that Soldier Boy isn't who you thought he was? Ready to come home. This isn't a reconciliation meeting, Blessing interrupted coolly, sliding a folder across the table. This is a legal notification meeting. Open it. Daniel's lawyer, a nervous young man who'd clearly been briefed on what was coming, opened the folder first. His face went pale. Daniel snatched it from him, scanning the contents. What is this? He demanded, but his voice had lost its confidence. That, Blessing said, is a comprehensive legal action package. First page, criminal harassment charges with video evidence from the baby shower, witness testimony from 23 people, and documentation of your social media campaign. Second page, restraining order extension with teeth. If you violate it again, you're looking at 6 months minimum jail time. Third page, defamation lawsuit for the false claims you've made about Tund on social media. Daniel's hands shook. You can't. Fourth page, Blessing continued mercilessly, is the interesting one. Copies of pharmaceutical supply documents showing your business partner, Benga Martins, was involved in a hospital equipment scandal that resulted in 3 patient deaths. Documents provided by a witness, Folake Williams, formerly Folake Badmus, who worked at the hospital and has been cooperating with investigators in the UK. I had nothing to do with that, Daniel shouted, standing up. That's Benga's business, not mine. But you're his partner now, Tun spoke for the first time, his voice calm and deadly. You took his money knowing it was blood money. You formed a company with him. When the authorities investigate him, and they will, because we're filing this evidence with the police and medical board today, they'll investigate everyone associated with him. Your business, your finances, your loan repayments. Everything. Daniel's lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Daniel shook his head violently, but the lawyer persisted. My client, the lawyer finally said, would like to know what you want in exchange for not filing these documents. Yemi leaned forward. I want you to leave me alone, Daniel. Completely. I want you to sign an affidavit admitting the divorce is valid and legal, witnessed by a judge. I want you to post a public retraction of everything you said about Tund, apologizing for spreading false information. I want you to enter a court-mandated anger management and alcohol treatment program. And if I don't? Daniel's voice was venomous. Then we file everything, Blessing said simply. The harassment charges move forward. The defamation lawsuit proceeds. And most importantly, these pharmaceutical documents go to every authority agency we can find. Police, medical board, health ministry, and the press. Your business partner goes to prison, your company collapses, and your name gets attached to a scandal involving dead patients. Choose. The silence in the room was suffocating. Daniel stared at Yemi with pure hatred, but underneath it, she saw something she'd never seen before. Fear. Real fear. You've changed, he said bitterly. You were never this cold. No, Yemi corrected. I was never this strong. There's a difference. Daniel's lawyer pulled him into the hallway for a whispered conference. Through the glass walls, Yemi could see the argument. Daniel gesturing wildly, the lawyer shaking his head, both men clearly at an impasse. Tund reached across the table and took Yemi's hand. Whatever happens, I'm proud of you. Even if this destroys both of them? Yemi asked quietly. Benga destroyed himself when he let people die for profit. Daniel destroyed himself when he chose obsession over moving on. You're just holding up a mirror. Tund squeezed her hand. That's not cruelty. That's justice. The door opened. Daniel walked back in, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I'll sign everything, he said hoarsely. The affidavit. The retraction. I'll enter the program. But I want one thing in return. You're not in a position to negotiate, Blessing said. Not negotiation. A request. Daniel looked at Yemi with something that might have been genuine remorse. I want to apologize. A real apology. Not because lawyers are forcing me, but because I need to say it. Yemi hesitated, then nodded. Daniel took a shaky breath. I was a terrible husband. I cheated. I controlled you financially. I made you feel small because I felt small. When you left, instead of respecting your choice, I tried to destroy your happiness because I couldn't stand seeing you thrive without me. His voice cracked. That baby shower. Pouring wine on you. That was the lowest moment of my life. Then why did you keep attacking us online? Yemi asked. Why hire investigators? Why spread lies about Tund? Because admitting defeat meant admitting I'd lost the best thing that ever happened to me through my own actions. It was easier to make you the villain, to make him the villain, than to accept that I'm just broken. Daniel wiped his eyes roughly. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that somewhere, underneath all this anger and alcohol and bitterness, I know the truth. You deserved better than me. You always did. Yemi felt tears on her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, the final severing of the emotional chains Daniel had wrapped around her for years. "I hope you get help," she said quietly. "Real help. Not because I need you to, but because everyone deserves a chance to become better." Daniel signed every document. The affidavit. The retraction statement. The agreement to enter treatment. His hand shook with each signature, but he didn't argue. When it was done, he stood to leave, pausing at the door. "Take care of that baby," he said without turning around. "And Yemi? He's good for you. That soldier. I hate it, but he's good for you." Then he was gone. 2 weeks later, Yemi stood in the nursery of their Ikoyi apartment, painting the walls a soft yellow while Tund assembled the crib. "Folake sent a message," Tund said, reading his phone. "The UK authorities are cooperating with Nigeria. Benga's been arrested. 4 other officials are under investigation. She says she's grateful we gave her evidence the ending it deserved." "Do you regret holding on to it for so long?" Yemi asked, dipping her brush in paint. "I regret a lot of things. But keeping it until the right moment." Tund shook his head. "No. Some things are worth the wait." Yemi's phone buzzed. She wiped her hands and checked, a notification that Daniel had posted his retraction. She opened it, reading the public apology, watching the comments roll in from people who'd attacked her weeks ago, now praising her strength. She closed the app without responding. Daniel's journey toward redemption, if that's what it was, didn't need her witness or validation anymore. "What are you thinking?" Tund asked, watching her face. "I'm thinking," Yemi said, placing her hand on her belly where their daughter kicked, "that I spent 6 years married to a man who taught me what I didn't want. And now I'm married to a man who's teaching me what's possible when 2 people actually try." Tund crossed the room and wrapped his arms around her from behind, his hands covering hers on her belly. "I'll spend every day trying to deserve that faith." "I know," Yemi whispered. "That's why I'm staying." Outside, Lagos traffic hummed with evening chaos. Somewhere in the city, Daniel was beginning his first anger management session. Somewhere in London, Folake was testifying about pharmaceutical corruption. And in this small nursery, painted yellow like sunshine, 2 people who'd both survived their own storms were building something new from the ruins. Not perfect, but real. And for Yemi, finally learning to trust both her strength and her softness, that was more than enough. The end. Thank you for following Yemi's journey with Stories by Stoner. If this story touched your heart, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to choose yourself. What lesson did this story teach you? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We read every single one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story of resilience, redemption, and the courage it takes to start over. Until next time, remember, your past doesn't define your future. You do.